is absolutely wild as Vern Gagne's All-Star Wrestling goes coast to coast and continent to continent. The greatest wrestlers in the world.
He may be an apprentice carpenter, but I guarantee you he is a seasoned ring veteran.
I've been hit with bar stools, bar rags, barmaids.
I'm talking to you.
They're scared that Hulkamania's still running wild. Oh, yeah. I got a big fat wife and 9 kids at home, and I gotta feed them.
And take a look at Jesse the Body in real life.
Open your hand once, if you would.
You want to see it?
This is absolutely unbelievable. Totally, completely out of control.
He's coming in over the top. Hey! Look out!
Hey, look out for me. My name is Tubbsy, a.k.a. Chris Tubbs. I am part of a 3-man crew here. 6-man tag. I guess we'd have to have a 6-man tag. We'd have to have, we'd have to have opponents. And I don't want opponents because I wouldn't be put over. So this is AWA Unleashed. We're preeminent with podcasting, with the AWA. I think that's fair.
It is. And you know what? We don't need 3 opponents. We're it. We're preeminent. We're it. We're the perennial Trios Championship of AWA podcasting. And that's it. There we go.
I think it's fair. Okay.
Excuse me. Hi, everybody. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Oh, I almost accidentally hit the end recording button. God, that would have been.
Don't do it by accident.
I know. Well, the problem is when I want to turn it off, I can't stop it. And then when I don't want it to do, and then we just have Wally doing what Wally did a couple of weeks ago, where he's like, I can't
turn it off.
I can't even do the. If you asked me to do a Wally, I couldn't do it. Yeah. What's going on, guys?
Not much, buddy boy. We're gonna go back in time this week.
Yeah.
1968. But before we do that, Chris, I think we've got some shameless shilling to do.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm all
ready in 3. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome in, everybody. We want to tell you about a couple of big things that we've got going on here at AWA Unleashed. First of all, we've got our pinfall membership. It is $4.99 a month. It is absolutely tremendously the best value in wrestling podcasting. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and get to my desktop and I will show you exactly what I am talking about. If you want to be like all of your friends and you know your friends are doing it and you want to do it too because you do not want to be left out in the dark, we have a $4.99 a month. It is our pinfall membership. It is the exclusive AWA Unleashed Patreon for $4.99. You get access to the podcast a day early. You get our watch along. It's Mystery Science Theater 3000 meets professional wrestling. You get a 5-pack, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 pictures from Slick Mick's Picks Collection. That's right. Look at Mick. He is wild and crazy. He can't believe everything that's going on. Plus, you get a welcome letter from myself. It's a hi. It's a thank you. It's a magnet. It's a sticker signed by me. Sign up right now.
Wow.
He hit it. Attaboy.
Boy.
You know what put me over the edge was this. That was the.
That's number 1. That's 1. There's 1 second left.
1 second. That's a 2, 1. Done.
Wow.
So yeah, we've also got TeePublic, guys, if you want our AWA Unleashed merchandise. So it's a good time. And once I have some time off from work in December that I think I told you guys the new idea for a logo I was going to put out. I think people will like it.
Yep. Too bad it's not in time for Christmas gifts because they'd be flying off the shelves.
Oh, it'll be in time. It'll be in time.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a hell of a gimmick.
The problem is, do I do it in kayfabe or do I do it real gizimic or gimmick? How do you write gizimic?
Just the way it sounds.
It's like Bobby Heenan said Leo Novelini's last name is like an eye chart. So, we can do whatever you want.
Hey, it's wrestling. It doesn't even have to be spelled correctly. Vern with an E, Vern with a Q, Vern with a W,
Baron von Erich Roschke.
Baron von Erich, yes. Like, what the hell? So, Baron von Erich Roschke. So, all right, guys. Let's go back to 1968. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna let you guys run with it, and I'll get all the pictures ready to gizzo.
All right. Sounds good.
B-side.
So, Mick, 1968. The AWA had been around for about 8 years by this point.
Correct.
So what kind of a year was it for the AWA?
Looking back on it, I wouldn't say it was monumental in terms of the history of the AWA, but it was a fun year. There was a lot going on. There were a lot of great feuds going on, and when I say not monumental, I think of things like when Bockwinkel won the championship. That's kind of a eternal big year in the AWA, 1975, or Vern's retirement in 81 or what have you. But 68 was just a steady, consistent storylines, great feuds, good attendance around the horn, and some fun stuff happened in 1968. Plus the fact that you'll see in a second, the AWA continued to have one hell of a roster going into 1969 from 68.
Okay, well, who was on top in 1968? Who held the strap, and was it more than just one person?
It was interesting because we did have a couple of title changes in the AWA in 1968. Going into the year, the heavyweight champion of the world was a guy named Vern Gagne.
Who?
He had the there he is there. Look at that young, suave, debonair businessman, Vern Gagne. Vern held the title from 67 until 68. But he regained the title real quick. Let's say that. But the man that he dropped it to in 1968 was that guy right there. And that would be the legendary Dick Beyer, Dr. X. And Dr. X had been in the AWA for about a year and won the championship from Vern. Of course, there were extenuating circumstances, as there always are.
Why does he look like a thumb?
I'm sure if Dick Beyer, God bless him, were alive today, that would be the first time in his life somebody referred to him as a thumb. I have no doubt about it.
I know what you're saying, Chris, but my guess is he's got a foreign object right here, and it's sticking up to making his head.
Okay. I was like, well, what's going on with the picture? Like, I'm just like, it looks like, okay. The foreign object thing makes sense, but I'm just like,
that's pure speculation. For all I know, he could be the Elephant Man's grandson.
Okay.
He could be, but I think Chris hit it on the head, or Joe, you hit it on the head. I believe he's got that chainsaw underneath the hood that heels are known to use in wrestling. But that is the legendary Destroyer / Dr. X. 1968, he won the championship for Vern Gagne, but just for a couple of weeks. Because promoter Wally Carbo forced him to get back in the ring, as only Wally could force somebody.
And let me be clear, there was no like disrespect to Dr. X. I just noticed that it didn't look like a normal round head. So I was just like, was there something going on with the mask? The shape just looked a little off to me. So I mean, you guys know, no disrespect. For people out there too. No disrespect with this. I was just trying to figure out why did it just look a little odd to me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And but Vern actually regained the championship a couple of weeks later from Dr. X. So those were your singles champions in 1968. Vern and Dr. X, back to Vern.
So looking at that photo of Dr. X, that was just the plain black mask.
Yeah.
How many different versions of the mask that he had? I know later on he had the literal X stitched in, right there. So how many different versions of the mask did he have?
I only recall, a couple. And I think when he came in with that first black mask, I think that's the one that he was sitting in the studio with for several weeks before he jumped Vern Gagne from behind. As I've said before, what better way to make an impact than sit on national television, in the front row of a TV studio for several weeks with a mask on. Nobody questions why you're there, who you are. And then he kind of advanced it and went to the white mask with the big X in the middle. For those fans who did not know how to spell X, I think he was giving them a little boost. But great feud, and that might have been the feud of 1968, Vern and the Good Doctor.
How about the tag team straps?
Tag team. The champions going into 1968 were a foreign combination, and there they are. That is Dr. Moto, who also wrestled as Tor Kamada in professional wrestling, and his tag team partner there, the late, great Mitsu Arakawa. And they were the AWA World Tag Team Champions, and that is a trophy. That was before there were belts, there was an AWA championship trophy that the tag teams held. And Mitsu and Dr. Moto were champions for, again, about a year. This seemed to be kind of the pattern with the AWA. Give the championship to somebody for about a year or so. And then they lost the championship before 1968 was out. Imagine that. You talk about the height of their impact in the wrestling business was certainly in the 1960s. Well, it really going into the early 1970s. Your friend, your favorite, the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser.
What a classic photo that is.
Isn't it? Isn't that something? And, Joe, you've mentioned before, Crusher and Bruiser were built like brick shit houses, but they weren't that tall. They were just stocky. They were fire hydrants.
Yeah.
Boy, in their day though, man, I'll tell you something. They were tremendous, and of course started out as heels here in the AWA first couple of years, and then flip-flopped in 1965. So Crusher and Bruiser regained the championship from Arakawa and Moto before 1968 was out.
How many saloons did those two destroy?
Not as many as you have. Continuing.
I take offense to that. I think Crusher and Bruiser would have come very close to what I've done in a bar, if I had ever been in one.
Oh God! All right, go ahead. We're going to take a look at some of the other stars, I believe, of the year 1968. You know what? We don't give the ladies enough credit, so we're going to take a shot right here. Back in the day, we've talked about this many times. The ladies and the midgets in professional wrestling were kind of a yearly, maybe once, maybe twice attraction. They would come into a town, certainly not on top like the ladies are every week now, featured on television and pay-per-views. There was a handful that would come through the AWA. You're looking at two of them right now. The lady in the dominant position, that is Betty Boucher. And she is yanking the hair of our good friend, Princess Little Cloud, Dixie Jordan. They went back and forth around the horn, had tremendous feuds back then. And I believe it or not, after all these years, Dixie told me they've reconnected via Facebook or, transmission, however they're connecting with each other, but the sisterhood of professional wrestling. So that just an example but again, back then, the women were kind of a singular attraction coming in for typically holiday cards or what have you in the AWA.
And I would say that the wrestling attire was just a little bit different than it is today.
I would say 100%. This is something more along the lines, and not even that they would wear on a trip to Saudi Arabia these days.
Yeah.
Too much of the body even is exposed right here for their taste in the Middle East. But yeah, Betty Boucher and Dixie Jordan, Princess Little Cloud.
Okay.
Here's a gentleman. When you talk about guys who were trained into the business by Vern Gagne, this guy doesn't get a lot of mention, and that is Bob Ramstead. He was trained in by Vern, broke into the business as a very scientific wrestler here up in the AWA. Then he went south. Then he went down to the Florida territory and became more the rough style. Bob Ramstead was relatively new to the business. I don't know if he broke in 68, maybe a little bit earlier, but he was pretty much a mainstay getting his feet wet in professional wrestling here in the AWA territory. And again, Bob Ramstead was known as Buck Ramstead over the years as his career progressed. Very, very talented wrestler, a lot of charisma, and sadly, we lost him not that long ago.
This is what's great about how we have this show set, or this, I guess show, how we have it set up. Chris is from the 80s generation. I go back to the 70s, and Mick, you go back all the way to the 60s. And I say that, I got to admit, I've never heard of Bob Ramstead.
Yeah, me neither.
Had no clue who he was. I never saw a promo photo of him in the files at the AWA. And of course, 1968, the footage from that year, be lucky if there's one tape that was on the shelf. But that's what I love about this. We've got all the decades covered.
And we cover them good and bad. We've, the bad towards the very end. But hey, it's part of AWA history. And Joe, to your point, and Chris, I do go back as far as the 60s. As a matter of fact, we had to cancel one show because Abe Lincoln had been assassinated in 1863. So we couldn't call that match. But yeah, we all go back to our different eras. But look him up on the internet. Buck Ramstead, great journeyman wrestler, going for the rest of his career.
Now, looking at our sheet, the next guy I've definitely heard of. The trainer of champions.
Oh my God, look at him. Look at Eddie Sharkey there. Eddie looks like he would be like the lead singer in a 1950s doo-wop band.
I was going to say that looks like it's an album cover.
Doesn't it? It really does.
Eddie Sharkey and the Shark Tones.
Very good. Very good.
Somebody who wants to go shoot out an office.
Well,
was it about this time that he did that?
This would have been right about this time. But this is even an earlier photo of Eddie than that. I mean, he looks like he's right out of the womb there.
He looks like he could be Kanicki's understudy in Grease.
Absolutely, he does. And it is Eddie Sharkey, even though his signature looks like Eddie Sharp. It is Eddie Sharkey, and Eddie, God bless him. 1968, he was doing a lot of work here in the AWA. He was continuing occasionally his matches with Bob Boyer. They had gone back and forth in the 1965 era to get a shot at Danny Hodge for the Junior Heavyweight Championship. Eddie was involved in tag team matches here on a pretty consistent basis. Eddie's been around the business a long time. God bless him. He's pushing 90 years old. But what a great shot of Eddie Sharkey. Mainstay or regular here, especially in the Twin Cities.
The story that Eddie has.
Oh. And the scary part, Joe, is that most of them really happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Who's up next on the Tilt-A-Whirl of 1968 stars?
I think we're going to go Savage on this one.
Oh. Wait a minute.
Do I have that one?
You should.
Let me see here.
Look for Dutch.
There we go. It was
all right.
Yeah, it was
there
under
we
D's.
go.
It was under D's. I should have looked for the D, and I just didn't.
Dutch Savage. great veteran in professional wrestling. And I know he was one of our buddy George Shire's all-time favorite wrestlers. Dutch came into the AWA. He had been all over the horn in the wrestling business, came in the late 1960s, formed a tag team combination with Hardboiled Haggerty on occasion. Dutch was a great season. You can tell by looking at him. Old school heel, wound up being legendary up in the Portland, Oregon area at the Pacific Northwest, not only as a wrestler, but as a television commentator. And again, this is a guy, name was overlooked when you talk about the history of the AWA. But 1960s, late 60s AWA, he not only was on the cards consistently, he was a headliner. Very tough dude, Dutch Savage.
Did he ever tag, or was he all singles in the AWA?
No, he did team. He was in some tag matches. As I mentioned, he was with Hardboiled Haggerty.
Okay.
They teamed up on occasion. But yeah, Dutch could do it all. He was one of these no-nonsense Ole Anderson type guys. No glitz and glamour. He was the real deal. No frills, no BS. Dutch Savage.
You brought up the name of Hardboiled Haggerty, and I think appropriately enough, there he is. We have Hardboiled Haggerty, Mr. Hollywood himself.
Mr. Hollywood, yes, he appeared in several movies, not the least of which was Vern Gagne's movie The Wrestler. He appeared in Paint Your Wagon, the Clint Eastwood movie. And Hardboiled had been here, of course, when it was still the old NWA Minneapolis territory in the 1950s. And he stayed pretty much right through, kind of came into town, left for a while. In the 50s and the early 60s, his feuds with Vern Gagne were like over the top. They were legendary. They were the thing here in the Twin Cities area. HB left for a while. In 1968, he came back, teamed up with Harley Race, actually, for a couple of matches here in the Twin Cities area. HB, his interviews were kind of like Nick Bockwinkel's. If you never heard HB deliver a promo, it was kind of the the eloquent man about town promo with an edge to him, similar to Nick Bockwinkel. But in the history of wrestling, Dan Sonsuk, Hardboiled Haggerty, one of the real legends in the business, and early 60s, late 60s, owned Minneapolis. This guy was the real deal. Legendary in the business.
Yeah, I'm used to seeing him completely bald and with the mustache in his later years.
Yep.
But yeah, I do faintly remember him. I believe he came in, like, wasn't he there for Vern's retirement match?
He came in for the last show at the Minneapolis Auditorium.
Yeah.
He came in with a lot of the legends, and I think he refereed a match, if I'm not mistaken, on that show. And Hardboiled Haggerty, I remember I saw HB. He was a regular at Cauliflower Alley Club, and one of these guys where I showed him an old program, and he was just ecstatic. You know, when did you get this? Oh my God! I remember I went around the horn with this guy. The beauty of wrestling.
We still have HB?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Sad to say, we do not.
Moving on to our next 1968 roster member,
Cowboy Bill Watts. And boy, even from the neck up, Bill looks every bit of a 300-pounder then. Broke into the business as a baby face, turned heel out on the East Coast later on in his career. But in the 1960s AWA, he was a baby face. Had some matches with virtually everybody that was a heel in the main event ranks in the AWA. Also had a run against Vern Gagne. And it was one of those matches where Vern actually played, now what do we want to say, the subtle heel, but Bill Watts was so popular that he actually got more crowd cheers in that series against Vern Gagne. Never did win the AWA championship, but great wrestler. Later on into the 70s, he was still here, teaming up with Wahoo McDaniel and legendary Bill Watts. His run not only in Mid-South wrestling, but of course when he was in the Georgia Championship Wrestling area. He came in and took over the reins of the Georgia territory, and Bill Watts did things his own way. He was a no-nonsense guy. It was Bill's way or the highway, but a mainstay here in the Upper Midwest AWA territory.
Chris, could you put that photo back up of Cowboy Bill Watts? Now, Bill Watts is a big dude.
Yes, sir.
If that's a 10-gallon hat, then Watts must have been about a 400-pound, 7'6" giant, because that is, on a normal guy, that looks like a Stan Laurel type of a hat sitting on top of there. Am I misseeing something?
No, you're not. And I don't know if it's the angle of the hat. Maybe the Bill was such a tall guy that maybe the photographer, was at a bad angle. But yeah, that looks like the kind of hat that a kid would go in, back in the Hopalong Cassidy days. Roy Rogers.
Howdy doody.
Oh, not bad yourself. But yeah, yeah, that's definitely. Bill had a lot of gallons in his body, let alone in the hat. So there you go.
All right, let's move on. And you should recognize this guy, a longtime mainstay in the AWA, none other than Blackjack Lanza.
Our good buddy, John Lanzo, from De La Salle High School here in the Twin Cities, by way of Albuquerque, New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Laredo, Texas, wherever the AWA wanted to bill him from at a time. Again, another guy breaks into the business as a babyface, cowboy, good-looking movie star looks. And then somewhere along the way, this guy aligns himself with a guy named Bobby Heenan. Not sure if you've heard of him or not. But all of a sudden, Jack Lanza, Cowboy Jack, is now Blackjack Lanza. And his career took off from there, obviously teaming up with Blackjack Mulligan, Bobby Duncombe. He was a member of the Heenan family. Jack here in 1968 was just kind of getting into the fledgling years of his heel run in professional wrestling, which continued until the mid-1980s. But we've talked, Joe, there are not many tougher guys than Jack Lanza. I don't know if he was on the level of a Haku or a Harley Race, but you didn't fuck around with Jack Lanza.
He could take care of business when he needed to. But I look at this photo and it harkens back to the style of the day, the pork chops going down the side. Look at that. It just classic. And of course, he had the handlebar mustache going on. Yep. Truly an evil Cowboy Jack.
Well, and can you imagine the amount of shoe polish that was in those sideburns that wound up on the rib cage of a wrestler who put Jack into a side headlock? Jack was losing his hair kind of early on, and he didn't want that bald spot to be noticed, so he actually would take some black shoe polish in the locker room before he went out to wrestle, and probably should have let it dry off a little bit before he got in the ring a lot of times. But love the guy, tough guy, Jack Lanza.
The comb over that he had in the early 80s, just let it go, Jack. Just shave it.
It's over, Jack. Yeah. No question. All right, who's next on our rogues list? This is a guy. This is the standard bearer for the Polish strongman innocent types that followed. Ivan Putski, I think, was a Class C replica of Dick Garza, the Mighty Igor. He came into the AWA, I believe, in 1964. He was here for several years, and it was, again, the old sitting in the front row, kind of like they do with a Hillbilly Jim or anybody else. Sitting in the front row, he was in a trench coat eating a kielbasa. And, he wound up getting involved in a couple of phrase brawls on television. All of a sudden, he's a professional wrestler. And he couldn't put a sentence together either. I never heard Wally translate for Dick Garza. He was never asked to, how much do you weigh, anything like that. But he, great baby face throughout his career, former Mr. Michigan, I believe in 1957, Dick Garza, and his son Eric is a regular on Facebook. And I got to tell you, he did this gimmick, this innocent, childlike gimmick, better than anybody. Wound up managed by Ivan Kalmakoff here in the AWA. They had some runs with Larry Hennig and Harley Race for the tag team championship. This guy had a huge career when he went to Detroit in that area, wrestling the original Sheik and guys like that. This guy's a real deal in pro wrestling, the late Mighty Igor.
I'm sure it happened before Igor, and that it wasn't the first time that this gimmick was run. And I'm not talking the Polish strongman thing, but the old somebody being in the front row. You brought up Hillbilly Jim. That's, move fast forward to the 80s, and some of our younger viewers would remember that. But I'll also throw in Eugene, more recent, the innocent sort of, I don't want to say, well, I guess dumbfounded, just the whole innocence approach. It just, wrestling is cyclical.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything that you see outside of the moves, because the guys didn't do today's moves back in the 60s and 70s, but classic. Classic, I'm going to say, for Mighty Igor. I faintly remember him in the beginning, and I remember being bummed when he was no longer here, but then Putski came shortly after to fulfill my childhood of a Polish strongman wrestler.
Yeah, Putski was kind of Mighty Igor with an edge to him. I think, if you're going to talk about the more lovable of the two, I think Dick Garza played the character better than Ivan Putski. But nonetheless, again, boy, was he over here in the AWA. Dick Garza.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. I think we have to go deep in the mines to highlight our next guy.
Deep in the mines of Omaha, Nebraska. The back alleys of Omaha. Mad Dog Vachon. Again, Mad Dog had been in wrestling for a lot of years and came into the AWA area, I believe, 1963. Was an on and off singles champion. Teamed up with his brother, Paul the Butcher Vachon, in the 1960s. Into the 70s, and then, of course, the transformation into the babyface Mad Dog Vachon in the 1980s. In 1968, he was kind of continuing what he had going with the Vern Gagnes of the world and the Crushers of the world. And, fans who just remember the dog from the mid-1980s run in the AWA, he didn't change his style. Joe, you've mentioned that many times before. He was the same biting, gouging, scratching guy in 1985 as he was in 1968. But the fans loved the Mad Dog, and this is just a classic picture.
So 1968 was Mad Dog teaming up with Butcher by this point already, or?
I believe so, and I should have my dates down to it a little bit more than I do, but I know about the late 60s, by 1969-ish, they were feuding with the Redheads, Billy Red Lions and Red Bastien. So I want to say, yeah, they probably were. I don't remember any championship runs prior to that, but singles or tag team matches. If this guy isn't on the Mount Rushmore of AWA wrestling, you're looking at the wrong list.
Definitely an apprentice carpenter and a seasoned ring veteran.
Yep. Heavy on the Mrs. Dash for the Mad Dog.
Well, we're going to go from one wild guy to another. The wild bull of the Pampas, Pampero Firpo.
Joe, look at this roster that we're talking about in 1968. I mean, one after another. And they always accused Vern, of being, traditionalist, and he wanted just the pure wrestlers. Hey, you're talking Mad Dog Vachon and Pampero Firpo in here, folks, and the Mighty Igor. You've got your characters in the AWA. Pampero Firpo, not the biggest guy in the world height-wise, but he was a character. Came into the AW. Well, he was actually in the Minneapolis territory in the late 1950s as Ivan the Terrible, and left and came back as Pampero Firpo, and wound up his career as a babyface here in the AWA. But in the 60s, he was feuding a lot with the Crusher. And Crush used to accuse Pampero Firpo of having rats and lizards in his hair, among other things. So Crusher would come into the ring with a spray can, aerosol can of disinfectant or bug killer, roach killer, whatever it was. And Pampero actually they had some cage matches. Crusher and Pampero did. Wound up being a babyface here in the AWA, feuding with Baron von Raschke. And as I've said, there was a loser leave town tag team match in the 1970s. Pampero was on the winning team and left town. So I'm not quite sure he understood the rules. Maybe out there on the Pampas, they look at things a little differently, but legendary Pampero Firpo.
I remember a promo where, and it was with Marty O'Neill, where he had a steel bar, about maybe 1 inch. I don't know how thick it was, but I mean, if I'm remembering, Marty tapped the steel bar, had Firpo painted on there. I think it might have been with typewriter whiteout, I'm gonna guess. But he took that steel bar, put it in his teeth, and then bent the bar. Now, I don't know if it was gimmicked. We're talking professional wrestling, but it was something that I remember from my childhood, and then years later, it's on tape. In fact, it's on one of the pay-per-views, one of the watch-alongs.
Yeah.
That we showed that. But yeah, Firpo was a scary-looking dude, and I'm just glad that when he retired from the ring, he shaved his beard and his hair when he was delivering mail for the U.S. Postal Service.
Isn't that something? Whatever happened to Pampero Firpo? Well, he delivered the postcard from your Uncle Jed back in 1970, whatever. But great guy, too. Met him at Cauliflower Alley Club, Pampero Firpo. And, legend in the business.
Yep. And another, like most of the guys on our list, most of our people on the list are no longer with us. Tell us about this big dude, Mick.
This would be Big Luke Brown. And in the early days of his AWA run, he came in as Man Mountain Campbell, left the AWA, and again, babyface, big hillbilly type backwoods brawler, but the fans loved him. Went by the name of Big Luke eventually in the AWA during his babyface run. Again, he was the kind of guy that would get in the ring with Hennigan Race or whoever the heels were at the time. Wound up being part of the tag team, the Kentuckians, along with Jake Smith, Grizzly Smith, Jake the Snake Roberts' father. They were legendary in the southern part of the United States. Nothing fancy about this guy. You can tell by the attire. It was just, he's coming in to scuffle. And that's what he did. And Big Luke, again, a main eventer, teamed up with Bill Watts occasionally here in the AWA 1968. But again, I'm looking at the roster, and you just had a potpourri of guys that eventually, if they weren't already established stars, went on to become even bigger stars than they were in the AWA. What a promotion.
You brought up how nondescript Luke was. I would make the case that pretty much everybody on this list was nondescript as far as their ring attire. You did not have the flamboyance. In fact, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Superstar Billy Graham was like the first brightly colored, first one to come in a non-traditional type of ring wear. And by non-traditional, I mean black, white, or gray, and whatever attire that you have.
Superstar Billy Graham was like you're watching The Wizard of Oz. You went from black and white, and once you got to Oz, everything lit up. And but no question about it. You're right, Joe. Different era. Back in the day, I guess the closest thing maybe would be John Cena in his jean shorts, going back to the modern era in pro wrestling. we can't see him. You won't see a picture of Cena here. But Big Luke Brown, a.k.a. Man Mountain Campbell, AWA.
Okay, Chris, who do we have next?
All right. This is the adoptive father-in-law or father, the adoptive father of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. That is Iron Mike DiBiase. And Iron Mike was a mainstay professional wrestler for many years before he came into the AWA. Here he was a heel. He was another one of these no nonsense, no flamboyance, none of that. Straight ahead punch kick heel. And as I said, he was the adoptive father of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Unfortunately, Iron Mike DiBiase passed away of a heart attack, I believe, immediately after a match. And this may have been in the Omaha area. I want to say 1960s, definitely, maybe into the 70s. But Iron Mike DiBiase, great amateur wrestler, great professional wrestler, and one of the stars from 1968.
I think that's the first time I've ever seen a photo of him. Heard of the stories, but again, 1968, not a lot of video footage that exists.
No, and again, I think, Iron Mike came into the Minneapolis area and then around the Horn a little bit, but he was primarily featured in the Omaha area. Promoter Joe Dusek, we've mentioned a couple of times, they kind of did their own thing on occasion, but a legendary, and again, part of the business. The heart just gave out after a match, and sad to say, Iron Mike did not survive.
We're going to move on to a tag team that we've featured and highlighted on this show many times. I don't even need to say who this is. You know.
I know who it is, and at this stage, they were still Pretty Boy and Handsome. Pretty Boy Larry Hennig and Handsome Harley Race. Of course, they had been teaming up since 1964 in the AWA, former AWA tag team champions. They're still having the run here. They're still, main eventing both as singles and tag team. Actually, at that point, Harley was, I believe, doing even more singles wrestling than Larry Hennig was in 1968. I mentioned that Harley teamed up with Hardboiled Haggerty on occasion. Had some singles matches against Vern. But again, Joe, you said they don't need any introduction. Sad to say, the footage does not exist of when they were over so huge in the AWA, feuding with the Crusher and the Bruiser, when both teams were at their peak. But legendary, one of the greatest tag teams in the history of the business, let alone the AWA.
I was watching a clip, I believe it was Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast, and Undertaker was on there, and they were talking about a Harley story. And I've heard a couple of other old wrestlers do it, but their impersonation of Harley, the way that he would talk. No, we're going to do it this way.
Yep.
I met Harley one time, but basically in passing, and that was before Wrestle Rock in 1986. We've had his son on the show. God, that's just one guy I wish I could have a night sitting at a bar or at his place, at his home bar, and just getting the stories and hearing him talk. That would have, put that on my impossible wish list.
Harley Race was a man among men, and let's not downplay Larry Hennig. I mean, not only was he a tough guy in the ring, didn't have the singles success that Harley had been, but remember, Larry Hennig attempted at least the Iditarod 500-mile snowmobile race from Winnipeg to St. Paul back in the day, and just you and I go outside and it's 30 and we're already shivering, let alone riding a snowmobile for 500 miles. But Hennig and Race, again, Mount Rushmore, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I'm certainly not dismissing Larry. I guess for me, I I've heard some of the Larry stories. I've been a part of some of the Larry stories. And so that one, yeah, I've been there, done that type of a thing, but I wasn't a been there, done that with Harley Race. So
Now, remember, Harley came in, we've talked about this before. He came in 1990 or 89, came in for that Rochester taping and had a very brief feud with Larry Zbyszko. And Harley was the babyface, of course, at the time.
Yeah. In fact, you bring up that 1990 appearance, and I remember, first of all, I've forgotten it twice now that he came back for a second time or third time. But that last run, what I remember after the last time, I forgot. The way that the locker room was when Harley Race came in, it was oh my God, or holy shit moment for a lot of the younger wrestlers, which there were a lot of young wrestlers in the locker room at that time. But the respect that they had for Harley, it was like he was king of the ring before he was king of the ring.
Joe, even at Cauliflower Alley, it wasn't just the young guys. It was the veterans, too. When Harley made his appearance, he came in with that walker, eventually the wheelchair, whatever. It was reverence. It was like the Red Sea was parting for Harley Race, no doubt.
Love it. Love it. Okay, let's move on from Race and Henning to our next wrestler.
Billy Red Lyons. Billy, I believe, was from Toronto. Mainstay professional wrestler. Around the horn again before he came into the AWA. When he came here, especially in the late 60s, early 70s, teamed up with our buddy, the late Red Bastien. Billy Red Lyons became a TV commentator and a host, professional wrestling up in the Canada area. I know I want to say he was a WWF or WWF commentator at one point, but I know that Billy was working up in Canada there. Great technical wrestler. Again, nothing flashy about Billy Red Lyons. And while he was feuding, I've mentioned this before, with Dr. X here in the AWA area, he was actually getting into the ring. Nobody knew this, with his real life brother-in-law. I'm guessing that Billy probably recognized Dr. X and didn't see the need to pull the mask off, probably had Thanksgiving dinner with him. But the world of professional wrestling, Billy Red Lyons, great technical wrestler with Red Bastien. They called them the Flying Redheads tag team here in the AWA, still running wild in 1968.
So was Billy here for maybe, it wasn't a long run. It was maybe a couple of years.
Yeah, he was here for a couple of years. Red Bastien kind of came in and out. Red was definitely here longer. Red was a Minneapolis guy. So, born and raised in the Twin Cities here, Roland Red Bastien. And so he was more consistent. But again, Billy Red Lyons, he's out there. Look him up on YouTube. There's matches and him doing commentary as well.
The next wrestler that we're going to feature, a legend. I mean, he wrestled all over the place. This is none other than Wilbur Snyder.
Wilbur Snyder, when he came into the AWA area, they hyped the fact that he was one of, if not the only guys to pin Vern Gagne cleanly in the middle of the ring. This is going back to the early 1960s. Wilbur was your classic babyface. They billed him out of Van Nuys, California. I don't know if that's actually where Wilbur was from. Here in the AWA, I said classic babyface. He was actually part of a six-man tag team match at the end of 1964, where one of his opponents was Dick the Bruiser. And the Bruiser wound up actually walking out on that match because Larry Hennig and Harley Race had turned on him, and he went out and got his cousin, allegedly, the Crusher, to come back to the AWA, and Crusher was a full-fledged babyface from that time on. Wilbur Snyder, he's another guy. I think he came in for that last AWA show at the Minneapolis Auditorium in 1988. But classic scientific wrestler. He was the first guy that I heard referred to as the man of 1,000 holes, Wilbur Snyder. And then he and Dick the Bruiser co-promoted in the Indianapolis area. So legendary, the late, great Wilbur Snyder.
He looked like he was a good-sized guy. Remember, I mean, was he, what, 6 foot, 6'3"?
Yeah, I would say probably 6'2", 6'3", and I would say every bit of 240, 250. And and nothing flashy again about Wilbur Snyder. You didn't need to be flashy back in the day to be over as a babyface in pro wrestling. Technically very, very sound, legendary in the business.
Yeah, and if you don't think that 6'3", 240 was big, that was huge for this era.
Yeah.
You know, we brought up the Crushers and the Mad Dogs and the Dick the Bruisers. Hell, even Vern Gagne. I mean, Vern was maybe 6 foot. But most of the talent, most of the wrestlers back then were just average sized guys. I mean, they were bulked up a little bit. And when I do this, not so much in a muscular sense as just a little bit bigger. They looked like somebody that you could run into walking down the block. The only difference is they're wearing only shorts as opposed to being fully clothed.
That's right. And you might want to go to the other side of the street too. If you're
there's that.
Approaching these guys. Wilbur Snyder, great talent.
Okay. The next guy had a couple of variations of his gimmick.
Bob Bedard, the late, just within the last few years, Rene Goulet. This is 1968, so Rene is still a babyface here in the Twin Cities. He changed his appearance a little bit, hairstyle-wise. Came into the AWA, I want to say 1963 was when he debuted. The ladies loved him. He had that, French, suave, debonair look to him. Feuded with the Crusher when Crusher was still a heel in the AWA. Rene was still a babyface. This year that we're talking about, 1968, here in the upper Midwest AWA territory, French Canadian, although they billed him out of Nice, France. Rene did some teaming up with Eddie Sharkey here in the AWA area. And of course, there was that stint, that mysterious stint in the French Foreign Legion, where Rene apparently went to the sands of the Middle East or wherever, and was so vicious, so vile that they kicked him out of the French Foreign Legion. Not only did they kick him out, they kicked him so hard that he changed his name to Sergeant Jacques. Sergeant Jacques Goulet, and feuded with a guy named Pepe Le Pew, boombox guy here in the AWA. To me, Rene Goulet is one of the all-time understated, underappreciated talents in the business.
I remember both versions of him, and I disliked both versions of it. From a fan, from a young kid perspective, he played the heel very well.
He did. He certainly did. And then he actually went out when he was in the WWF. He was a tag team champion as a babyface, and then came back as a heel in the WWF. He had a storied career, did Rene Goulet.
Very good. Okay, we've got a couple left. Our next guy, I think we're missing one.
Well, that's all right. Let's talk about these guys.
Yeah, okay.
Because we
I didn't want to shortchange these guys, so I want to make sure we got them in.
Oh boy. We mentioned the ladies before as a singular attraction here in the AWA area and in pro wrestling in general. The midgets were the same thing. And God forbid we call them midgets these days, little people. They would come in again for the holiday cards. Big attraction with the kids. Marty O'Neill used to hype, hey, kids, the midgets are coming to town. You don't want to miss this card. That is on the left with the head of hair. That is Fuzzy Cupid. Fuzzy Cupid. I think you probably dated a gal by her name, or maybe I did, Joe, back in the day. And the tag team partner, Sky Lolo, legendary Sky. Now, you would look at that picture and you would think, wait a second. That is Billy Gunn and Baron von Raschke. It really is not. Fuzzy Cupid and Sky Lolo, I believe, were recognized for a short time, for a very brief period, as the midget tag team champions of the world. That was long before the days when the little people were basically kicked out of wrestling shows that promoters around the country, the big time promoters, felt there was no need to showcase the midgets, but they went around the horn, basically had the same match every time, handful of midgets, maybe 15, 20 around the business. But Fuzzy Cupid and Sky Low were mainstay talents in the AWA and elsewhere in the 1960s.
Yeah, it was really comedic relief.
Yeah,
is what their matches were, and every midget or little people match, they would always end up completely piling on the referee. Like it was the same match every year, just with different wrestlers. But they were so fun to watch. It was just, it was entertaining. You got to laugh and you got to see wrestling. I can see why. Certainly, I'll go into the 90s version, I guess, and somewhat into the later 80s, why promoters quit using them. Talk about exposing the business.
Yeah.
And so I get that part of it, but the ironic part is that once the business got exposed, you didn't see little people wrestling anymore. There is a league that features them, but they don't do the shtick. It's like an actual wrestling, albeit in I'm guessing a smaller ring, 16-foot ring as opposed to a standard 20-foot ring. But whenever they came on the card, I had to go to my mom, the midgets are coming. Didn't take much to sell my mom to go to a live wrestling event. As long as it was at the St. Paul Auditorium or Civic Center, she didn't want to drive to Minneapolis.
And Joe, you hit it on the head. It was the same stuff over and over again. It was kind of the wrestling version of the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah.
You were going to see the same stuff time and time again. The bucket of alleged water, which turned out to be confetti or what have you. But they worked hard. They were damn good athletes. And I don't care if they were 4 foot or not, they would kick the crap out of you. These were big, strong guys, tremendous entertainers. And I think when they did the Doink and Dink and how many other dinks and whatever in the WWF, I think that pretty much killed off the division, although you did have Hornswoggle coming in after a while. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Hornswoggle came in. He wasn't with another little person. It wasn't
Correct.
a little person match. He was just a little person who did very well for himself in the business and still makes appearances. But yeah, I miss those stupid, funny, laughable midget matches back in the day. Chris, are we going to put up? There we go. Nick, take it away.
There you have it. You can talk about Rocky Johnson. You can talk Rocky Maivia. You can talk, whoever you want. This was The Rock, and I don't mean Don Morocco. This was Al The Rock Rogowski, who eventually, of course, became Ole Anderson. And he was billed as, I believe, a nephew of the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser back in the day. I guess if you had short blonde crew cut, you were automatically somebody's nephew or somebody's cousin in the wrestling business. He was no more a cousin or a nephew of Crusher and Bruiser than they were cousins. But here in the AWA, started out as Rock Rogowski and then just The Rock. Tough guy, kind of a tweener, as they say in the business, babyface / heel. When he left the AWA and went down south, that's when everything exploded. But again, and I keep hyping this, you think of the roster. This is in 1968. This guy's just getting his feet wet in professional wrestling. And look what he went on to in the business. But big, tough, no nonsense. It coincidentally, Joe, that expression on his face never changed for the rest of his life.
A legend, and of course, a member of the original Four Horsemen. For those that might want to remember a little more,
talk about a tough guy, and he teamed up with Gene Anderson and Lars Anderson. Gene was the only legitimate Anderson. Lars, of course, was Larry Heinemi, and Ole was Alan Rogowski. But tough guy. Got his start up here in the upper Midwest.
So we've seen the roster, Mick. You've talked about what a lineup that there was. What would you consider to be the feud of the year?
I think you would have to go with Vern Gagne and Dr. X. And there you're seeing it right there. That's a program. Now, X at this point has won the championship from Vern Gagne. I mentioned that they traded the titles in the late summer into fall of 1968. And you see that guaranteed $10,000 purse. I've mentioned before, Wally Carbo comes out on television. He's not sure that Dr. X is going to live up to his commitment and show up to wrestle Vern Gagne in the rematch. So he made Dr. X post a $10,000 bond, which Dr. X delivered to Wally Carbo's outstretched hands in the form of buckets of change that went all over the WTCN studios. And I'm sure that Vern probably went in there with a super-powered vacuum cleaner after the promo was over and sucked them all in. But this was the rematch, and this is when Vern Gagne regained the championship from Dr. X. And remember, back in the day, Joe, I've talked about this before, the mask was a real deal back then, because if you got beat in 2 out of 3 falls, whatever, and one of them was not by disqualification, Dr. X would take the mask off. That was the caveat. Far different world than it is today.
The simplicity of professional wrestling back in the day. So I made the comment earlier about, the guy's lack of size, if you will. Certainly not the 6 to 7 foot monsters that are more prevalent in the business today. But back in 1968, even though steroids were around, I mean, we saw Superstar Billy Graham a year later or so. But back in 1968, what did the guys do to have their endurance and their vitality to get into the ring? What did they have any help?
Well, they did, and we're not talking about Viagra. And by the way, Joe, that was a great setup. That was a great pitch. So let me deliver the goods. If you wanted to stay in shape, if you wanted to enhance your physique, have that endurance and what have you, as a professional wrestler, there was only one way to go. And look at that. Look at the sign. Geraspeed, Geralac, Vern Gagne's vitamins. These were not the only two. By the way, that's Ernie Ladd on the left-hand side of the screen, along with Marty O'Neill and Vern Gagne. Geraspeed and Protein Power Pack were the first two. Love that setup, Joe. The first two Vern Gagne vitamins. Geralac was a liquid vitamin. And then Vern, of course, went on to develop Dynapower, which George Gadasky said gave him the shits. Eventually, Dynapower was a protein for enhancement of your physique, what have you. And there was also Ziggity Who 12. Ziggity Who 12 for the kids. And where did that name come from? Vern was actually, he wanted to come up with a vitamin product for kids. So he said, kids, it's going to give you that old Ziggity Who. And then I suppose he figured 12 and under was the target age for Ziggity Who, unless it was vitamin B12, I don't know. But it was Geraspeed, Geralac, Protein Power Pack, Dynapower, and Ziggity Who 12 were the vitamin products released by Vern Gagne in the 1960s into 1968. So there you go.
I'll just leave the whole Geraspeed, Geralac, Ziggity Diggity, Higgity Who, whatever. I'll let that go. When I see that photo, man, Ernie Ladd was a big, big dude. Look at Vern again. Vern was 6 foot approximately, maybe 6'1". Now, granted, he's got one knee. He's not fully standing straight up. But look how much bigger Ernie Ladd is. Holy shit!
Ernie was, I think, a legit 6'8", 6'9". There's no question about it. And probably these days they would have built him, 7 foot something or other.
Yeah.
But yeah, and every bit of 300 pounds. Former professional football player and a great one with the San Diego Chargers. Great professional wrestler. And at this point in the 1960s, AWA, Ernie was a babyface. He went on to be one of the great heel talkers in professional wrestling. But again, I mean, good grief. The roster is just extraordinary. Our pal George Shire used to say, anybody who was somebody, came through or started in the AWA territory. So for the AWA to be minimized or diminished on any professional wrestling historical list is a crime. This was the real deal, and that was a look at who was on top here, 1968.
So we've got one more item for 1968, and I always forget when our last wrestler started in the AWA. Did the AWA have to go all the way to Hollywood to find our last guy, our last spot on the roster?
They didn't have to go to Hollywood. They went to Atlanta, Georgia, where he was a mainstay. But let's get and it's not the clearest picture in the world, I'm sorry to say, but Joe, you enhanced it very nicely. That is on the right, Peter Marshall, the former host of the Hollywood Squares. And this was actually a July 1968 appearance by Nick Bockwinkel as a contestant on the Hollywood Square. How can you mistake Nick? My God, that Bockwinkel grin ear to ear. And this is legitimately July 1968. I believe Nick won something. I don't know if he won a car. He won something as a guest on the Hollywood Squares. A year later, he appeared on an episode of Hawaii Five-0. Prior to that, he had appeared on one or two episodes of the Monkees television show. So yeah, Nick was established not only as a professional wrestler, but as a Hollywood actor. And look at those Hollywood good looks the Bach had. 1968 Hollywood Squares.
So weird to see Nick in his natural hair color.
Yeah.
Not bleach blonde, or because of the bleach blonding so many times, sometimes it turned into a yellowish orange.
A little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, what a good looking guy. I can see why Hollywood had him on a few different things.
Yeah, and babyface at the time, of course. I don't think he reached his heel stride till about 1969, 1970 in the Atlanta area, and then, of course, carried that through to the AWA here in the upper Midwest.
Wow.
And I mean, if you're going to go, do the Hollywood thing like Hawaii Five-0 or Hollywood Squares, Vern certainly had to have the trust in you that you were going to represent the company well, and probably nobody better for that, honestly, than Nick Bockwinkel. I mean, somebody that could represent the wrestling business and not come across as like a goofy, stereotypical wrestler.
Chris, we talked about this so many times, the professionalism in Nick that Vern saw. And as they worked together hand in glove, took Nick 5 years before Vern trusted him to carry the mantle with the singles championship. But they had a great business relationship. And Nick stands alone in so many ways from the other champions in the business, the flamboyant Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan or what have you. Nick Bockwinkel was a professional wrestler. He walked into a room and this guy got your respect.
My friend Chuck Foreman, who I do a thing with, Talk Vikings, he said there's a difference between being a pro and being a professional. And it's like, I think about that, and I think about Nick, and I apply that. I'm like, yeah, you can be a pro wrestler, but to be a professional, it just takes another level of presentation.
That's perfectly stated, Chris. And I'm thinking as you're talking here. Well, not only did Nick protect the business, because he was a second generation guy, but Nick was trained into the business by another guy who carried the mantle of champion with a capital C, and that was Lou Thez. Lou was he just exuded professionalism and class and dignity. And so Nick had a pretty damn good mentor there. No doubt. Yeah, every once in a while I extol the virtues of Nick Bockwinkel.
You just shared info that I did not know. I did not know that Lou Thez trained Nick.
If I'm not mistaken, Lou might have been, if not Nick's first match as a professional, but one of the first matches. And Lou, along with Nick's dad, Warren Bockwinkel, trained Nick into the business. But can you imagine that? What a mentor to have in Lou Thez. Amazing.
I know we're going a little long, but quick question on Warren Bockwinkel. How over was he? I mean, was he a big star?
He was a star, but not a big star. He was one of these guys that would headline cards or basically was an undercard talent. Tough guy, Warren Bockwinkel. Again, kind of the Ole Anderson physique type of guy. Big, husky guy. Nothing flashy about him, but just a solid veteran.
Okay. Thanks for that little non-AWA tidbit.
Yep, there you go.
Let's give some shout outs and wrap it up and take it home.
Our good buddy Sheldon Goldberg out there in the Northeast turf of the United States, promoter, author, just a damn good guy all the way around. See him at Cauliflower Alley Club all the time. He's a mainstay presence on Facebook. Sheldon, we love you, buddy, and hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
So I'm doing yet another blind dart throw fan of the week shout out from myself. And I try to get people that we haven't covered before. And I think this is one. If not, oh well. This week goes to Christopher Brooks.
A Patreon member, has been for a while. And I want to give a shout out to Larry Young, one of our newest Patreon members. So Larry, thanks for jumping on board. Hopefully you're enjoying everything for your $4.99 a month, and get in contact with me, and I'll get you set up with a letter, with a magnet and a sticker, and then I'll get the information over to Mick so he can send you some of his 5-pack pictures. So got that. If you guys want to become Pinfall members for $4.99, we got some really cool things going on. Of course, we've got exclusive interviews. We've got, the watch-alongs, which are really popular. You get a weekly Back to Ringside with myself and Mick. You get the podcast a day early. Just a lot of stuff that you can get for $4.99. Well worth it. And thank you to Larry for signing up as one of our more recent Patreon members.
And Chris, just for you and I, specifically more than Joe, I think, we do some apologizing on this show when we run late in, whether it's answering emails or getting stuff in the mail. Life gets in the way, and it happens. And if we're ever lax on getting you stuff, let us know and we'll
Absolutely.
Get right on. Pure and simple.
Yeah, because I've got a shoot job. Mick's got other things going on. Joe's got Joe's not really a part of the Back to Ringside that, or the, Patreon where he, sends things out. But yeah, for sure. Let us know, because that falls on Mick and that falls on myself.
This was a great show. These are very popular. When we put these year in retrospective shows together, they go over, as they say in the business. So to everybody, we're getting into that time of year now where our schedule might be changing a little bit, Chris, with the holidays coming up, but we'll keep people informed. We'll keep them on the stick.
Yeah, we have to. And if you're running low on energy this holiday season, be sure to go and get yourself some Geraspeed or some Geralac or Zippity Doo-Dah-Day from Vern Gagne. Yeah, it might give you the shits, but it gets you up and moving.